Good afternoon. Welcome to the European Union Energy Day discussion on hydrogen. My name is Elizabeth Press. I'm the director at the International Renewable Energy Agency, and it is my pleasure to chair this session this afternoon. So first, a few housekeeping points. This is a silent conference, so please wear your headsets. We have 3 languages interpretation. English is 1, French is 2, the Arabic is 3. We also have an online audience, and I warmly welcome you with us today, and hopefully we're going to have a dynamic and interesting session. The discussion that we're having this afternoon is around hydrogen, and for those of us who have been here for a week, we know it is a topic of high interest, and we had a lot of discussions already until now, and even some announcements that have been made in the first week. And today we're going to take this to the next level. We're going to talk about how to fuel the energy transition, renewable hydrogen trade in partnership for carbon-free future. It is my immense pleasure to invite His Excellency Frans Timmermans, Executive Vice President for the European Green Deal, to deliver the opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm supposed to speak very quietly so that you all wear your headphones when you're listening. That doesn't come naturally to me, frankly. But okay, I'll speak directly into the mic. So it will come as no news to you that I'm a huge proponent of hydrogen as part of our energy mix of the future. And I mean renewable hydrogen, which I think rocks because it does offer solutions, especially for difficult to abate sectors, where just using electricity won't do. And it also offers a huge opportunity to store renewable energy when you generate it, and you generate more than you can use or use at that moment. And in that sense, it will change the whole architecture of our energy systems. And I sometimes wonder whether we actually see the dimension of the change that is happening and that is coming, because all of our assumptions are based on 200 years of experience, first with coal and then with oil and then with gas. And all these assumptions will have to be recalibrated once the renewable energy comes in, and especially once hydrogen comes in. And I have to say, in my view, this offers huge opportunities for countries who in the past could only dream about having access to their own energy, could only dream about being part of a global market where they did not have the natural resources to look after themselves, where they very often also were at the mercy of countries who did have it and had to adapt their policies and their choices to the prices that were set by others or to the conditions that were set by others. And for me, in my view, I'm just not sticking to my notes, and I'm sorry for that. Sorry for my team who've done such excellent work. But I wanted to share some of the strong feelings I have about this, because I believe, since we are in Africa, this is by far the single most important opportunity, I believe, for Africa that I can see. I stand to be corrected if you disagree with me, but as I see it, this could bring, through renewable energy, electricity to 600 million people who today have no access to electricity and therefore have a very limited access to development. And this electricity, which will be abundant because it can come through solar and wind power, will then be able to be stored in hydrogen, and hydrogen then will become a commodity that will also bring development to countries who in the past had no commodities. And I think it will redraw the map of Africa in the future. There are a couple of challenges because it will take time. It will take time, it will take technology transfers, it will take creating the right conditions for the right investments. We are very ambitious in the European Union in the coming years to go quickly on the hydrogen market, but also we have seen that it will take a level of investment that is not easily available, given also the other constraints we have, both political and economic, in the near future. But the revenues of the hydrogen market are huge and are also, I would almost say, more democratic in the sense that they can be generated anywhere where there is sun and wind. And that is something completely new. Now, how would I see this develop in the future? Well, I think we need to look for very elaborate, concrete partnerships. We are a long way already with Egypt, which I believe is going to be a huge success story. I think, and Egypt is a country with a mixed situation, because Egypt also has its own fossil fuel sources. So there are also countries in Africa that don't have that, such as Morocco. With this country, we also are very quickly elaborating plans for hydrogen. I also believe that there are many other countries that are now trying to make the choice whether they should invest in fossil fuels or not. And my argument would be it's entirely up to you. And certainly as a European, I'm in no position to tell countries what to do. But I would like countries to, together with us, look at what the investment possibilities are, what the return on investment is in renewables, as compared to return on investment in fossils, especially coal and especially oil. And I believe if you start investing massively in coal or in oil, you are already now creating stranded assets that will be to the detriment of the future of your population, and especially if you have, as many African countries have, an average population of under 20, then I think the future of these people should be more important than what is happening exactly today. And I think that, well, gas is still something to be debated. I grant that, especially if you can integrate the infrastructure you create for gas with the future infrastructure you will be needing anyway for hydrogen, which is something we're also doing in Europe. If you develop it in that way, then I can understand that natural gas can be sort of the transitional commodity in this market. But by and large, I believe that renewables are the next big thing, especially for Africa, and these renewables will immediately lead to being able to play a huge role in the hydrogen market. Not just to make hydrogen, but also to make other gases such as ammonia, which I believe could be one of the biggest winners for the future of shipping, for instance, and also in other areas for fertilizers, etc., which is also something we no longer want to depend on those suppliers of fertilizers who have shown to be very unreliable. You know that we have started a hydrogen bank in the European Union. Just to make sure that we bring this up to scale as soon as possible, because frankly speaking, this in Europe is probably the biggest challenge we have, to bring things up to scale quickly enough. And all the help and all the partnerships we can create would be very useful. All the possibilities you would see together with us to have the private sector invest in this sector as soon as possible would be extremely helpful. Now, in the conditions we see today, the hydrogen market for us, again, I repeat, is not a market where the European Union will in any way or form be self-sufficient. That to me is very clear. We are expanding much more quickly than we had anticipated renewable energy generation in the European Union, but at the same time we're also expanding, you see the need for electricity expand. So the idea that we would have huge excess production levels of electricity that we could put in hydrogen in Europe needs to be sort of nuanced. If I look at the plans of many of the difficult to abate sectors in European industry, and it's also happening globally, you will see, you could probably project that the need for sustainable hydrogen will be much higher than what we can produce ourselves. So this global market is potentially there. And the one thing that is attractive, especially in the context of today's geopolitical situation, the one thing that is attractive to us is that a global market of green hydrogen will be so diverse that there will not be one producer that could blackmail other people or arm twist other people because they would be too dependent on one producer of that commodity in the future. So that creates a much more level playing field and a much more fair situation in an energy market that has been characterized by many things, but not very often by fair. I also think, and I want to end on this, because I also believe that this is a huge opportunity for countries that today rely very much on the production of fossil fuels, because their assets go beyond extraction. They're also into the technology to develop these fossil fuels, and especially everything linked to the infrastructure, to transport, to get it where it needs to be, and all that knowledge is quite specific and is now linked to hydrocarbons, but in the future will also be linked to hydrogen. So I would sort of urge those countries who perhaps are a bit reluctant because they say, well, we believe more in hydrocarbons and we want to continue there. You have huge assets that also will help you be a big player in this market of the future, and don't underestimate that potential. And I believe that on that basis, we could create a situation that is profitable for large parts of the globe, and that will help us decarbonize our economy and our energy mix in a huge way. And that, my friends, is one of the best ways to keep 1.5 alive and to make sure that we hand over to our children and grandchildren a planet where they can still develop and prosper in a way that is within the bounds of this planet. Right, and hydrogen is a big part of this, and I wish you a great discussion, and we at the European Commission, Kadri and myself, we are open to engaging with you on all these issues. We are learning as we work on this. This is, I mean, 5 years ago, who was talking about hydrogen? Only the experts. Now it is a global issue, and we want to learn at the Commission. We also want to contribute, and our doors will always be open for those who want to discuss this with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this inspirational and optimistic outlook, because this is an implementation COP and we need more solutions to become visible and that we can all partner around. So for IRENA, this is also, we share the same vision and share the same commitment to hydrogen. And with our global membership, we see enthusiasm around the world. So we have a great panel today that we will have a different perspectives from different areas. And it is my pleasure to start with Her Excellency Ms. Rana El Mashad, who is the Minister for International Cooperation of Egypt. So we are in Egypt. Egypt is quite active in this space. And we would like to hear from you, what do you need to quickly scale up the production of renewable hydrogen and derivatives, obviously, especially in terms of financing technology infrastructures, and how can international cooperation help you do this faster?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure being on this panel with great friends and colleagues, and we also have Odile, the president of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, with us. Egypt's journey towards green hydrogen started a while back. We, in 2014, put together the integrated energy strategy to be able to allow private sector engagement in the production of renewable, be that wind and solar. So this helped us tremendously equip ourselves towards where we are today. Just last week at COP, there was a very important signature between our president and the Prime Minister of Norway, Scatec, a private, one of the biggest private sector companies, starting green hydrogen facility in Suez. And this is extremely important. It's going to be a hub. And it's going to be a hub for Africa. What's very important about this is the regulatory framework, which comes on the shoulder of the country to be able to allow for the vision that was just mentioned. How can we decarbonize, save gas to be able to export that and actually increase foreign exchange earnings for the country? But also you need the financing. So to have the private sector there, but financing being availed through EBRD, through a grant element from the CIF, having also a guarantee provided by MIGA. All of these elements show the importance of international cooperation to be able to actually reach a very effective energy mix, which benefits the country when it comes to the infrastructure, and also for the later on for shipping and creating all the ecosystem around the industries that actually tailor towards making the green hydrogen possible. Let me just mention one extra element, and this is where our partnership with IRENA also comes in when we talk about Egypt's country platform for the nexus of water, food, and energy. This brings us to the next stage of adding more capacity for renewable energy by decommissioning 5 gigawatts and adding 10 more gigawatts, and this is very important, linked to Egypt's NDCs, and in a very significant agreement that we reached with our counterparts in the United States of America, Germany, and also the EU and many other partners, where Egypt's energy savings on, or the energy mix with renewables is brought forward 5 years with an updated NDC by June of 2023. So here, this is again a commitment from the country to move forward, and this country platform is extremely important because it avails the technical advisory, the grant component, and the concessionality, which draws in the private sector into the investments that will actually allow for more renewable energy production. And let me just add one item when it comes to financing, because we've been hearing since Glasgow, from pledges to implementation, and some of the creative ideas that came out is in a world where there's a lot of debt, there could be debt swaps for climate action. And in the platform and for the project on energy, the energy pillar, there is an element of that swap. So there's a lot of action which is taking place, and also we're updating our strategy with respect to the energy mix with the EU. This is updated from 2014 and is going to be announced during 2023. So this, just to conclude, for us to be able to work in a multilateral system where there are mutual benefits, investing in our infrastructure, moving towards decommissioning, but also availing exports of gas to other places, having the green hydrogen that could be also exported, creating the jobs. This requires commitment from the government. It requires clarity on the projects, and it also requires credibility. And I think those are the three pillars which are actually defining our relationship, be it with our international partners as multilateral development banks, EBRD being one of them, IRENA being one of the partners with us also in terms of the feasibility studies and some of the technical advisory on the projects. Of course, the EU, and I want to thank His Excellency Frans Timmermans for his support on the different elements with respect to the country platform and Egypt's acceleration of its climate agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for drawing attention to renewable energy as a multiplier solution, because there's many different aspects that we can cover. We don't have much time, so better to think in this comprehensive way. So let's go to the other side of the hydrogen story. Her Excellency Ms. Tina van der Straatenen, the Federal Minister of Energy of Belgium. So Belgium will be a future importer of renewable hydrogen and a hub for the import of hydrogen in Northern Europe. So what role can a country like Belgium play in the future international hydrogen market, and how it can facilitate trade between potential suppliers in European countries?
Thank you. Belgium is a small country at the energy crossroads. As the Commissioner has said, European Union as a whole cannot be self-sufficient. We as a country, we cannot be self-sufficient either. But we have a lot of infrastructure for electricity, and today also for gas. Our LNG capacity that we see today is a strong holder to security of supply to the European Union and to our neighboring countries. And this is what we intend to be when we want to be an import hub for Europe. And what our policy direction is that we want to be honest brokers. And that is very important. And the Commissioner said he would stand corrected, and I don't have any intention to correct him, because I 100% agree. This can be a game changer for countries in Africa, but also beyond Africa, who have abundant sun, abundant wind, and that can, as a planet, as a global society on a whole, we can provide clean energy access to all. And this is something that we, as Belgium, within the European Union, but together with the European Union, that we can deliver on this honest and this trustworthy partnership that we need to have. What is important is that we work on mutual benefits, but that we provide also if we as European Union want to be credible towards Africa, that we need to provide a clear, you said clarity, a clear regulatory framework. And so I think we should move on with our delegated acts on RFNBOs and also specifically on additionality. Because and I agree, renewable energy, sun and wind is the next big thing. And hydrogen is in a way a derivative of sun and wind, of renewable electricity. But if we want to unlock this huge potential of sun and wind, not only for us, because we have our manufacturing industries that we want to anchor in our societies, but also renewable electricity to be available to the African continent as a whole, then I think our rules on additionality can help countries like Egypt, countries like Morocco, also countries in sub-Saharan Africa like Namibia and every country in Africa. So if we want to help create a global market, then you have our utmost support when you come with the European Commission with a delegated act on additionality on RNFVBOs.
Thank you very much. And I will come back with a couple of questions, but before that, unfortunately, His Excellency Mr. Timmermans has to go ahead another engagement. Thank you so much for being with us for this long, and thank you for your encouraging message to the audience. I'm going to take your place now. I will come back with a couple of questions, and hopefully we're going to have enough time. But let me go to Her Excellency Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, who is the Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy in African Union. I actually know you have more names in the title. I think there's the digitalization and other things in the title. But this, so we talked about an opportunity that hydrogen presents for developing countries. And as Africa Commission, you have an overview of what is happening on the continent. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing from your side to support countries in taking advantage of this?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Allow me at the outset to benefit from the fact that we have Her Excellency Minister Mashat with us to, on behalf of the whole continent, to thank Egypt for a fantastic crop. I've been in several crops before, never seen this much number. I've never seen this wonderful organization and these lovely pavilions, and definitely never this much sessions. We are racing and running around trying to catch up with the so many events, and that again shows how much interest and in the topic of climate. But this also the crop of implementation, and that is exactly what we're talking about here, and that's why we are here. Also, I would like to thank Irina for having this session and for the EU for hosting the pavilion, and to also welcome Her Excellency the Minister from Belgium, my colleague from the EU, Kadri, Commissioner Kadri, and the Commissioner Timmermans. Now, I'm going to make 3 points. One, how the landscape of energy in Africa is different than what you think, or than what many think. Two is that a crisis is also an opportunity. And three, it's a game changer. Green hydrogen is a game changer, but. So I'll start with the first point, the landscape. You will hear a lot, and I'm sure you've done that already in the media, talking about gas and oil and coal in Africa. Africa actually is the region that relies most on renewable energy and produces most of renewable energy. People seem not to know that we have 22 African countries whose main source of energy comes from renewables. We have countries whose energy, like 90%, 95% comes from renewables. So energy is not a monolithic place. You would have to really look into which country you're talking about in order to see what's happening in that country. So that is to say that Africa, in general, we're extremely active when it comes to renewables. However, there is so much more that could be done given the endowments in all sources of renewable energy that we have on the continent, be they solar, wind, geothermal, hydro. And this is where we are now. And having said that, we still have, yes, 600 million Africans who do not have access to electricity. We still have 900 million Africans who do not have access to clean cooking, which is a huge issue, causing lots of deaths every year. Africa also, we have 18 countries that produce gas and oil out of the 55. So you really have to, as they say in French, relativiser. You have to nuance and understand what is it exactly that you're talking about, which part of Africa, which country in Africa, so as to tailor solutions. There is no one solution fit all for any country in this continent. So this is my first point. The second point, there is a huge crisis, other than the crisis that we already have, and I just mentioned, of the serious energy poverty that we are having on the continent. We cannot continue in the 21st century with tens and hundreds of millions of people without access to clean energy for cooking or for electricity. This is unacceptable at any level, economic, moral, human, whatever it is. It's unacceptable. But even this has been compounded by a serious crisis, that of COVID, and COVID, of course, with the disruption of transportations, and those who are importing fossil fuel have seen this, being interrupted. We don't have enough for storage across the continent. Came 22. We are even in a more severe situation due to energy crisis or the war or the geopolitical situation in Europe. And I know Europe is suffering, but what is not said often in the media, that Africa is suffering even more, because of a war that is happening in Europe. We have the energy prices that are soaring high. And as I said, only 18 countries are fossil fuel producers. Soaring high, reflected in the prices of everything, including transportation. Reflected also and also causing another insecurity, which is food. And it is tragic and very sad to say that Africa imports 80% of its food. Very serious. And of course, the pressures on the public budgets and on inflation and what have you. But it is also an opportunity. And why it is an opportunity, we just said it, Timmermans just said it, and everyone here has said it. In a few months' time, we have 6 and almost very soon 8 African countries who are starting their green hydrogen production. This is Africa, the Africa I love. So we are catching up very quickly in order to seize the moment and see in this a fantastic opportunity for us. We have 4 African countries that are already taking steps to produce the SAF, the Sustainable Aviation Fuel. I know it's not this session, but it's also something we have to talk about, because Africa is poised to be the hub for the SAF production for the whole world. And what is now the game changer but? But what? We don't want to keep exporting our natural gas because the prices are high, and I do understand that, because we need the revenues because of all what happened, in the last few years, and we do need the revenues. But what is going to happen, and very soon, the prices are going to fall again. And whoever is importing our gas, very soon we'll have a replacement. We'll find ourselves not having invested enough of our natural gas, for instance, in clean cooking. So we will be exactly where we started. Even green hydrogen, what I see now is a rush to export, fine. But I hope, I know that some countries starting that, to localize the industry, to start thinking of the value chain within our countries. How are we going to use green hydrogen also for us to change, not just for export? And this is when it's going to be a game changer, not just for export. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and thank you for breaking it down for us, because this conversation is becoming a lot more nuanced. It's not just about development and deployment. There is a more comprehensive picture around this. And let me now turn to the Director General, Mr. Francesco La Camera, head of IRENA. So now we heard views from countries and regions, and we have a global role. So how do you see the renewable hydrogen story evolving, not just in this region, but in the larger trade picture?
So first of all, thanks for inviting me to be here with you today. And I think I wish to join in expressing my congratulations on the way this COP has been managed. I'm not talking about the venue, I'm not talking about the pavilion or other, but I think there's been a first step, significant one, to try to move from the negotiation mood COP to something that's more close to the reality. Honestly, I have to say, being involved in my past activity in making this kind of negotiation and standing until the morning for fighting for a world instead of how to do things. And I also wish to congratulate in this context the way they have managed this new initiative, the NIEFA. I hope I pronounced it well. Yeah, that's one. Where there is an effort to design differently the way our cooperation works, in this case for Egypt. I think this could be an experience that should be duplicated in the future, replicated in the future in other country. Coming to, and also in the reality, being on the implementation side, we are happy that we can collaborate with you, Egypt government, and with you, Belgium, in this renewable hydrogen forum. I think this is also a very important initiative that put us closer to the ground. Coming to hydrogen, naturally hydrogen is important. Going around the pavilion, I think that you can capture that the vision on where we are going is a vision that belongs now to many in respect of 10 years ago, where, as Tilleman say, no one was talking about green hydrogen, and someone was talking about renewable as a niche and not as a possible fuel of the future. So now it's evident that a new energy system based on renewables, complemented by hydrogen, mainly green hydrogen, and sustainable biomass, is the way we are going. Naturally, the question is the scale and the speed of this transformation. Because in the past, in building the old and death energy system centralized based on fossil fuel, we had the time to do that. Humanity had the time to take 200 years to build the system. We have not this time now, because we have the time limit of the climate change and the fight to climate change. Concerning what the partnership can do, I think that we have two questions. I hope that I want to speak more general in the second question. I don't want to take much time now. But partnership is important, and they may cover part of the change we need to have more action on the ground. Some example has been there. We have learned about what's happening in Africa. I completely agree on the circumstances that Africa is not only one Africa. We have many Africa, and solution has to be tailored for the different situation. But we think also that we have to change gear when we talk about Africa. If we want to have the success story that we want, but at the scale that is needed and the time that is needed. So we much welcome about also this kind of partnership with Norwegian, with other. I know the European Union is here, others here are interested. But there is a point that is very interesting that's been said, and after that I will stop. That is important that it will be not just producing and selling hydrogen somewhere. What is important, yes, the potential is to link also the industrial sector of the African country. The supply chain can find here a way to decentralize the production of something that is absolutely needed for the energy transformation. molecule and the commodity can be also produced and sold from here to other parts of the world. So the bilateral cooperation, the partnership is to think about to build or renew an industrial sector that can be really power the African development. I will stop with this and will come giving a more perspective in my second part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General, and thank you for drawing attention to the potentials that exist beyond what we are discussing here. And let me now bring in our online participant, Ms. Odile Renaud-Bassou, who is the President of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So we heard from countries, we heard from regions, we heard from the sector, and now everything hinges on the quickly accessing finance. So can you please tell us what countries, first of all, what developed countries can do to make this finance available, and what developing countries can do to actually avail themselves of the opportunities?
Thank you very much for having me with you today, although remotely, and I apologize for not being with you in Sharm-el-Sheikh, but I was there last week. And indeed, I wanted first of all to underline the fact that in EBRD, we very much support and believe in the development of green hydrogen as a very important component of the green transition, in particular for the hard-to-abate sectors. So we really believe that this is a solution that we need to work on, to develop, to scale up in order to succeed in the green transition and to succeed in reaching or keeping the increase in temperature below 1.5. Let me start by saying, a few words on where we believe green hydrogen should be developed, and the focus, because now we are in this panel with Her Excellency Hani Al-Mashat, and a lot of focus is on Africa. We really believe that indeed Africa is the country, the area, and there's a lot of assets in order to be a key player in the development of green hydrogen, because of the cost competitiveness, the availability of renewable energy. And in particular, I think North Africa and Eastern Mediterranean could be one of the best regions for an accelerated uptake of green hydrogen. It has some of the best renewable resources in the world. It has, which gives sort of massive competitive advantage when it comes to scaling up renewable hydrogen. And we have made an assessment on the potential for the countries in which we intervene in the region, so basically CEMET countries, Mediterranean countries and Eastern Mediterranean. And our assessment is that the region has the potential to produce between 2 and 5 million tons of green hydrogen annually by 2030. And this can really develop green value chains domestically, as it was highlighted by a previous panelist, in high carbon intensity sectors such as fertilizers production. Second point I wanted to make is, what are the conditions and how to deal with that, how to go about it and to scale it up. So first idea is that we need in order to reach this potential supply, we need really to think strategically about investing across the supply chain. And massive investment will be needed. For example, we assess between 12 and 30 billion needed for electrolyzers production, between 40 to 60 billion euros needed in dedicated power plant utilities. This would also apply to develop sustainable mining practices and supply chains for the critical materials that are needed to build this renewable capacity in particular. This means also to increase the capacity to upgrade the electricity network, increase its capacity, and hydrogen distribution infrastructure. So the list can go on for long, but we need to think really strategically about what are the investments needed, and they are very large. Second element, beyond the investment, it's also, in our view, very important to build hydrogen strategies, regulations, and market frameworks that will provide long-term clarity to investors. And because of the size of the investment needed, we need private investors to come in, and to do that, for them to be attracted and so forth, they need to have clarity about what are the objectives and what is the regulatory framework, what is the legal and the regulation about this activity. And one example I wanted to mention, because we are in Sharm-el-Sheikh, is the partnership we have developed with Egypt in order to define this hydrogen strategy, national hydrogen strategy, and approach to develop this very important area. And in parallel to that, for example, we are also working with the Suez Canal Economic Zone to establish a safe and optimized industrial hub based around renewable hydrogen and its derivatives. So it's about the strategy, and it's also about the investment area and investment framework. And fourth message, and to come back to, third message, and to come back to your key question at the beginning, is how about the financing? And now is really the time, I believe, to use the financing tools that fit the unique needs for the hydrogen market. This is a nascent market with early stage project, even if it's growing, but it's still relatively early. And the project needs large-scale investment, as I was explaining, but investors do not have yet certainty on supply and demand. So the financing tools we need have to pull together multiple investors and lenders and ensure that they cooperate closely. To reduce the risk associated with early-stage projects, first loss guarantees should be provided. And this will be a very important component of making progress and scaling up on this area. And we've been working, for example, with the EU Commission on EFSD which is a guarantee framework, and this could be a blueprint for hydrogen. And I believe that we really need to scale up this kind of instrument in order to accompany the development of this sector. And we are in discussion with the EU so that this is taken into account in the development and the design of the EU Hydrogen Bank Frank Timmermans was mentioning. And all these can be used in parallel with alongside grants and concessional loans. So all this is already underway, and I think we are making very good progress. Last week, President Sisi launched the Fertiglobe plant, which will use green hydrogen to manufacture green ammonia for the fertilizers industry. And this is the first green hydrogen deal in Egypt, as well as first green hydrogen deal for EBRD. And I think this could be a blueprint, and we are really ready to support similar deals in all countries where we work. I think this region has a special role to play here because of its vast potential and which can meet the large share of future global demand. To make this a reality, I think there is a lot of work to be done in the next 5 years with early movers to deliver that at scale, but you can count on our commitment to make this happen. And I think we are already see the first. As I was saying, a very concrete project, and we have the key elements, and I think we just need to grow them up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And let me stay with you. We have just under 10 minutes to get a second lightning round, and I have a few questions. Just a very quick one to you. Do you see any segment of the hydrogen value chain where you think the financial support is lacking?
No, I think, as I was saying, it's on all the bits. We need, the renewable part probably is the easiest to finance because we have already the market is used to financing renewable, and this is, probably the easiest part. But development of the supply chain to have the components to develop the green hydrogen, and also linking the demand and supply is very important, and that's where we probably need most innovative financing.
Yeah. Okay, so I see hands, so I'm just going to drop the script. Commissioner.
Yes, quick comments on what was said. I know that EBRD does not operate for now beyond some countries in North Africa, but actually the regions that are most poised, are already starting to work on green hydrogen, not only North Africa, we have the Horn of Africa, Southern Africa. I mean, we talk about 5,000 million tons a year. This is the first point. The second, and I'm saying this also in relation to what Francesca and myself, we were talking about, localizing the industry, and this is where also finance is needed. We must bear in mind that it is still very costly compared to other sources of energy. I know that with time, of course, very soon, with technology, the prices will go down. But when we add the cost of transport, it becomes much more expensive. And only a few days ago, someone from Morocco was asking me the question, because their green hydrogen with transport becomes more expensive than, to export to Europe than the countries in Europe that are using coal. And there are more countries in Europe now that are, digging for extracting more coal. So we have to, compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So we cannot compete as we stand now with the fossil. Third point is transport. For it to be green, and that's important, for green hydrogen to be green, then the transportation, the mode of transportation of green hydrogen also has to be green. And we are not there yet. So if we also add the green transport, the prices may be higher. I'm saying this, it is the start. It is, as it was said, it's a nascent market. We just explore, but I want us also to understand that it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to happen overnight. Not to mention the piping, if we are going to use pipelines, the retrofitting, the replacement of the installations, and so on and so forth, which is costly. And this is where also financial institutions and incentives in terms of new instruments for finance could help make really of green hydrogen a game changer, rather than just producing something that is not yet competitive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stratton.
I agree to what you said. At the same time, we are living one of the, in our era, at this moment, we live a war. We experience a war, and you yourself have made reference to the consequences of the war also on the continent of Africa. And we cannot accept that we only talk about energy infrastructure just in an economical business case. It's a question of security, of international, of global security. And these investments need to be done. And specifically in infrastructure, we in Belgium, we will be doing our share. And the second question would have been on import infrastructure. And we are looking into the possibility to create a hydrogen backbone, repurposing our gas pipelines. But this is, of course, our perspective. This is our perspective to anchor our industries, to anchor jobs, and to create social welfare. But as you have so rightly said, there is also the other perspective. And import infrastructure means that we will connect to other continents, that we will connect to Africa, and that we will have to share expertise, and that we also have to share energy. That's specifically what we are doing with Namibia. And Namibia is very vocal about this, that the project that we have together between Belgium and Namibia needs to be about access to energy for Namibians in itself first and foremost. And this is the way how that we want to proceed. We have an import policy view, but it's not a tactical relation. It's a strategic partnership, a strategic energy partnership that needs to be environmentally sound and coherent. What you've mentioned about the shipping, for example, it needs to be socially just, the energy access, energy poverty that you've mentioned, and also humanly right. And on these three pillars, we can build a strategic energy alliance between continents.
Thank you. Let me quickly go to you, Minister. So some of these things actually work for you in hydrogen strategy. So what are the experiences that you can flag that we can use or replicate?
I think what is very important is the realization that if there is cooperation, everybody benefits. And the idea is how can we create models that make sense, leverage on everybody's need, and can be replicated and scaled. And this is where we came in with our platform. The country is very clear with its vision. It has a climate strategy. That climate strategy is linked to development. So when we say climate, it's not coming at a cost. We're going to do the development project anyway, but we are able to leverage the interest globally on moving in the climate, towards climate action, and they're linked to the NDC. So there are some common denominators that countries need to work on and advocate on a national level. And then the other point is once you are able to do that, the projectability, the pipeline of projects that will be able to benefit on a national level, but also on an international level, because if we're doing our renewables right, we'll be able to generate our green hydrogen, and therefore we will be able to engage in the energy security which Europe needs. So to be very clear with the vision, to be very clear with the projects, to have partners that are able to dissect these projects, to create a business case, not just for the concessional, but to crowd in the private sector, so it becomes energy security, but also a business case. They are not mutually exclusive. They just reinforce the argument quite a bit. The other point is that it's country-led. There's ownership. So when there's ownership, you find this concept of people finding it in their interest as well, one that you can advocate domestically and also bring together international partners, bilateral partners. And this is what we've done in our country platform of the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy, NOWAFI. And the whole point was from Glasgow to here, there's so much supply of billions and trillions that we hear about. There's a lot of demand, so why aren't they matching one another? And the point was to create an operational model where we can say supply can meet demand if there's the vision, if there's the projectability, if we can mobilize the different types of financing to bring in private sector. So I think what we try to do here at COP27 with the mobilization of financing that took place and the mobilization of partners that took place, bilateral, multilateral, European Union, the EU, the MDBs as well, was extremely important. And this COP of implementation, we have 12 months to show exactly that all of this is being implemented. So when we go to COP28, we say we have done it. And then we are seeing already countries coming to our colleagues and our partners telling them we want to do an NOWAFI for ourselves. How can you help us do that? Yeah. And this is where we are very proud of this model. It's a model of multilateralism at a time when the global backdrop is one that doubts multilateralism and doubts international cooperation. So this is it's been very effective so far. And we are all working to make it successful. And that in itself creates this mutual benefit, which brings energy security, brings development security, and brings good livelihood to the people in the continent as well.
Thank you very much. And before I bring Commissioner Simpson to the stage, Director General, can you just tell us next steps? Where do we move from here? 12 months at our disposal.
Okay, then. Say very briefly what is the next step. I think that it's my duty to say very clearly that we cannot imagine that we can make the progress that we need to achieve to be in line with the Paris Agreement goals if we still rely on the infrastructure that we have been inherited by the old energy system. So naturally we will progress, and our direction of travel is clear, we will go there, but we have to change gear profoundly. So we all know that I will talk about Africa because we are here, and I want to talk about this. We cannot talk that Africa can reach the result they wish to reach if we don't rethink and reimagine how the international cooperation works. I remember I was not there. I was not born in 1972. You know, there was the previous energy crisis, the very heavy, that one. The response was the creation of an agency that was the International Energy Agency. You know what was the first step? The first step was obliging every country joining the EIA. The requisite was to have 30% of the energy capacity always storage. So 30% of a member of EIA of capacity should be storage. And this is why, because it was told at that time, having this storage capacity, you can react to the shocks. Now it's evident that this old story doesn't stand anymore. So we have to go to a more decentralized system that will be largely based on renewables and others. But for doing this happening in Africa, do you think that today the physical infrastructure of Africa is ready for it? I applaud all the success that my friend has presented today, but Africa is not ready. Not only Africa, but we have to think about what the physical infrastructure will mean, what the physical legal environment, what the legal structure, legal environment, the structure concerning the institutional capacity. And we have to reimagine how the international cooperation work. Who is going to work on the building on the physical infrastructure? Can be state? I don't think so. Can be government? I don't think. Can be private company? I don't think. So what the multilateral financial institution will do, this is important too. And I think it should be clear coming from COP like this one, a clear message to the multilateral system. They have to provide means for building the physical infrastructure of Africa in Southeast Asia. We have the plan for that. If not, I'm sorry to say, we will progress, but we will not progress enough to avoid the worst impact of climate change.
Thank you very much. And let me invite Commissioner Kadri Simpson to give us the closing remarks and try to sum up this really rich conversation. Commissioner.
Indeed, dear panelists, thank you for a very interesting and in-depth discussion. This was actually the very last panel during this EU Energy Day here in COP. And I think that we all can agree that one of the pleasures of the COP is how much expertise and knowledge it brings together in one place. When we planned this panel together with Irina, we thought that we will organize it to look into the opportunities that renewable hydrogen can bring to all the countries across the globe who embark for energy transition. And after that discussion, I just have to conclude that the opportunity is already here. It will bear the fruits within this decade. And from our perspective, this is very important that despite the fact that the market is not ready for renewable hydrogen yet, there is demand. From the European perspective, we have moved very fast. It was only 2 years ago, July 2020, when we presented our first ever flagship document for hydrogen. It was our hydrogen strategy, only 2 years ago. And now we know that at this current situation where there is a necessity for fuel switch to replace some of the natural gas very fast with clean alternatives, we have to scale up our hydrogen production, but also import from our global suppliers. And my dear colleague, Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans already mentioned that we do plan to launch several international partnerships with our trusted partners. This is a thing that is already taking place between private and public market players. We will also witness several MOUs, some of them signed here at the COP. But we do believe that these partnerships actually will help us to to serve as a model for cooperation between the EU and our reliable partners across the world and help to kickstart the global market for renewable hydrogen. So we need to make sure that the upcoming global hydrogen trade will be solid and reliable, benefiting all partners, supporting our decarbonization efforts, and improving the security for our energy systems. And I know only one way how this can be done, and this is through strong, continuous, and constructive cooperation. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Simpson, and please join me in thanking everybody. Thank you for staying with us, the audience online. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Thank you very much.